Hey guys, welcome back to more Entitled Parents stories. Imagine your entire family conspiring to steal your $2 million inheritance, forging documents, lying under oath, and gaslighting you into thinking you are crazy. That is exactly what happened when my grandmother died. Let's dive right into the Reddit story. And the first one is titled, "Parents hid Grandma's will, stole $2 million inheritance and gave it to golden child brother." To set the scene, I grew up as the responsible kid. I worked part-time as soon as I was old enough, paid my own way through school, and moved out as fast as I could. My brother was the golden child. If he so much as breathed near a task, he was trying his best. Every bad grade had an excuse, every mess he made was somehow someone else's fault. My parents did not just enable it, they practically worshipped it. The only person who ever treated me like I mattered was my grandma. She was one of those quietly sharp people, not flashy, not loud, but you could tell she was the smartest one in the room. She had grown up poor, worked forever, and ended up with a paid-off house, some rental property, and a surprising nest egg. She never bragged, she would just say things like, "Always read what you sign." And if someone is loud about being honest, they're probably not. We were close. I helped her with errands, fixed her computer, and took her to appointments. My parents just visited on holidays, and when they wanted something, my brother showed up when she was handing out birthday envelopes. At some point when I was helping her set up online banking, she said, "You know, I've made sure you will be okay when I'm gone, right?" I remember shrugging it off, saying, "I would rather you just stick around." "I will do my best," she said and patted my hand, but still, I put it in writing more than once. Fast forward, she passed away after a short illness. It hurt, but it was not sudden. I was there a lot near the end. My parents weren't. They swooped in after she passed like they were clocking in for a shift. The funeral was small. Afterwards, my parents said that we would deal with the will and paperwork at their house. Their tone made it clear that this was not a suggestion. I showed up, still pretty numb. They were sitting at the dining table with a stack of papers. My brother leaned back in a chair playing on his phone like we were at a boring staff meeting. My mom cleared her throat. "So, Grandma's will is complicated," my dad chimed in. Complicated turned out to mean you get nothing. According to them, Grandma had revised her will to leave the house and most of her assets to my parents with a large gift earmarked for my brother to help him get on his feet. I was supposedly left out because I am independent and doing fine. "We did not want you to be hurt by this," my mom said using the fake soft voice she usually pulls out when she's about to say something awful. "But Grandma felt you didn't need the help." My brother did not even pretend to hide his smirk. "It's not about love, it's just what makes sense, you know. You're stable." It felt like getting punched in the chest. I remembered every time Grandma had told me flat out, "You're the responsible one. I'm not worried about them manipulating you." I even remembered her saying that she had put it in writing, plural, wills, plural, so I said very carefully, "Can I see the will?" My dad slid a stapled document across the table. It looked like something printed off a template site with a basic "everything to my children" with specific gifts as attached type wording. My name showed up once in a generic "I have a grandchild" clause, no specific bequest. There was a notary stamp and some scrawled signatures. I'm not a lawyer, but I read contracts for work. Something about it felt off. The language didn't sound like my grandma at all. She had had a lawyer for years. I recognized that firm's name from stuff I'd helped scan, and their letterhead was nowhere on this. Still though, I was shocked and grieving and sitting in my parents' house, and they were piling on. "It's already been filed with the court," my dad said. "We just need you to sign these so we can wrap up the estate. Standard release stuff, you know." They pushed more papers at me, a receipt and release form, something about acknowledging that I'd reviewed the will and had no objections, something about me having received full disclosure and waiving any right to contest. My grandma's voice rang in my head, "Always read what you sign." So I did, slowly, and my mom got impatient. "It's boilerplate, everyone signs those." "This is for the estate file," my dad added. "If you don't sign, it just drags everything out for no reason." That alone made me suspicious. If I truly got nothing, why did they care if it dragged out? I played along though. "Do you mind if I take a picture of these? Just so I can look them over later too." My dad frowned. "There's no need for..." "It makes me feel better," I said. "I'm not refusing to sign, I just want a copy for my records." They exchanged a look, my mom plastered on a smile. "Fine." I snapped clear photos of every page with my phone. And then after one more slow read-through and making a quiet mental note of the wording, I signed. I know, someone will read this and scream at their screen, but at that point I still half believed maybe Grandma really had changed her mind, and I also trusted that if something smelled off, those photos might matter later. Spoiler, they did. The next few months were rough, grief hit me in waves, I threw myself into work and just tried to move on. And by the way guys, let me know in the comments what would you do if your parents decided to steal your inheritance, because honestly, if you have family like this, you don't really need enemies anymore, let me tell you. Also, if you enjoy the relationship stories, please don't forget to like the video, because that would help me tremendously. Also, let me know where you are watching from today. My parents and brother, on the other hand, suddenly had new opportunities. My parents listed their old house and moved into a bigger one. My brother bought a brand new car and posted about it online like he had cured something. Anytime I gently asked, I thought Grandma didn't have that much, they would brush it off. Her house sold for more than expected. Some retirement accounts were worth more than we thought. It's not your concern, you're doing fine. Those lines were repeated so often they might as well have been rehearsed. The thing that finally cracked it open was a piece of mail. I had taken a couple of Grandma's old boxes home with me when we cleaned her place out, and one day while shoving them deeper into a closet, something thin slid out from between two photo albums. It was a small metal key on a chain attached to a little plastic tag with the name of a bank branch and some numbers, and I recognized the bank. It was not the one she had used for regular checking. My brain nudged me. A safe deposit box. The next week, a letter showed up at my place forwarded from Grandma's address. It was from that same bank, addressed to her estate, saying the safe deposit box rent was due and that the box would be drilled and contents removed if payment was not received. Weird. Nobody had mentioned a safe deposit box. I called my dad. Did you know Grandma had a box at that bank? They are sending notices. There was silence. But then, oh yeah, that was nothing, just some old paperwork, we already handled it. Handled how? I asked. We emptied it and closed it, must be a clerical error, don't worry about it. Yeah, no, between the key in my hand and the fresh letter in front of me, I was officially in worry about it territory, so I went to the bank myself and I explained that I was the grandchild and that my grandmother had passed, and that I'd gotten this notice and wanted to know the status of the box. The teller looked at the letter, looked at the system and said, it's still listed as open and in arrears. We send notices to the last address on file. I played dumb. Are my parents listed on it? She checked. 2 renters, your grandma and your mother. My heart sped up. Is there any note on the account? Did someone come in after my grandma passed? She frowned at the screen. There was an access a while back by your mother, but the box is still officially open. It has not been drilled or anything. That was the first big gotcha. If my parents had closed it and emptied it, the bank system would show it as closed, but it didn't. I asked what I would need to access it as part of the estate, and she said I would need proof that I was the personal representative or an order from the probate court. Well, the problem here was, according to my parents, that had all been taken care of already. So I went online and looked up the public probate records, and where I live you can pull estate files for a small fee. I requested everything filed under Grandma's name. The package came a few days later, and that was when the full scope of the fraud started to show. There was a will on file, not the one I had seen at my parents' table, but clearly the same document, same typeface, same generic wording, same notary. It named my mom as executor, and it said assets would be divided between my parents and brother. It listed no safe deposit box, no rental property, no detailed asset list, just all my worldly goods. There were also sworn statements signed by both my parents saying that this was the last will and testament and that there were no other wills known to exist. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, those documents and the photos I had taken of the stuff my parents made me sign. I pulled up an old email from Grandma's real lawyer. He had sent me a scan power of attorney once when I was taking her to a medical appointment, and the names didn't match. The will on file with the court was not drafted by her longtime lawyer, it was just some generic thing with a different name at the bottom. The notary stamp looked off too. I googled the notary's name, very few hits. I checked the state database for notaries, but there was no listing for him. I emailed the law firm I knew that she had usually used, and they responded faster than I expected. A paralegal wrote back, yeah, Grandma was a long-term client. We handled several revisions to her estate plan. Due to privacy rules, we cannot share documents without proper authorization, but we can confirm she did have a will on file here. We were never notified of her passing, though. That last line made my stomach drop. If my parents had legitimately probated Grandma's will, the law firm would have been contacted. They weren't though. Someone else had produced a different will and told the court that was the only one. I made an appointment with that firm the next week. Sitting in their conference room felt surreal. I laid out what I knew, my parents' version of events, the generic will, the safe deposit box key, the bank saying the box was still open, the firm's email, the attorney, an older guy with the exact kind of no-nonsense energy my grandma used to have, listened without interrupting, and then he pulled up their files. "We drafted multiple wills for your grandma," he said. "Early ones left most of her estate to your parents. Later, she started making changes." He clicked around. "The last fully executed one we have on file names you as the primary beneficiary of her estate." He turned the screen so I could see, and there it was, plain as day, my name spelled correctly with language that sounded exactly like my grandma. Specific bequests including her house, her rental duplex, and the remainder of my liquid assets to me. There was a line about my parents and brother having benefited substantially during my lifetime, and that this was intentional. It was signed, notarized, and dated later than the fake one my parents had submitted. Why wasn't this will given to the court? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. The attorney sighed. "We keep originals here unless a client asks to store them elsewhere. We were never contacted after her death. It's possible your parents found an older draft at her home and used that, or produced something entirely new. Either way, what's on file is not her last will." He asked if I'd ever seen the version they used before. I hadn't. Grandma always said, "I've taken care of it," but she never waved documents in my face or anything, and then he asked a question that flipped this from family dispute to, "Oh, they are screwed. Do you have reason to believe assets were hidden, misreported, or diverted?" I thought about the rental property that had mysteriously been transferred to my brother, the house that sold for more than expected, the new car, and so on. And of course the sudden expansive vacations, the half-truths and brushing off, the safe deposit box my parents claimed was closed that the bank said was still open. "Yes," I said, "I do." The attorney leaned back. "Alright, then this is no longer just a probate matter. This is potential fraud, concealment of a will, and perjury. If you want to pursue it, we can file to reopen the estate and notify the district attorney." I sat there for a long time thinking. Part of me wanted to scream and confront my parents on the spot. Another part of me remembered every time they would gaslight me, minimize me, turn things around to make me the problem. If I went in half-cocked, they would just spin it, destroy evidence, and make me out to be the greedy one. So I chose the pro-revenge route, quiet, patient, and thorough. I hired the attorney on the spot, and over the next few weeks we built a case. The law firm produced Grandma's original final will naming me the sole beneficiary, plus handwritten notes that she had left with them explaining why. She had actually written, "I love my children and grandchild equally, but I've already given substantial financial support to my children and brother. I want OP to have the security he hasn't had before." They contacted the bank formally about the safe deposit box, providing death certificates and proof that I was the beneficiary under the later will. The bank froze any attempts to access it, and we subpoenaed the probate file and all supporting documents. My parents had signed sworn statements saying they were unaware of any later will, and they had also undervalued some assets on the inventory, the rental property that had been in Grandma's name for years, magically missing from the list. My attorney quietly flagged it all to the court in a motion to reopen the estate due to discovery of a later will and evidence of potential fraud, and the judge granted it. At the same time, the DA's office got involved too. Concealing a will and lying under oath on estate documents is not just family drama, it is a crime. I didn't tell my parents anything, I kept conversations superficial. When they bragged about my brother's new condo, thanks to Grandma's generosity, I just nodded and changed the subject. When they told me I was so mature for not making a fuss, I smiled and let them talk. Inside, I was counting down. The first time they realized something was wrong was when they tried to refinance one of the properties and discovered there was a court hold on it. The second time was when they got notified of a hearing to address issues in the administration of the estate. My mom called me sounding rattled. Did you do something with the estate?" I played dumb. "I got some letters from the court. I assumed they sent them to everyone. What's going on here?" "We need to talk," she said. "Sure, at the hearing," I replied, and hung up. I won't go into blow-by-blow detail about the court stuff because it's boring to most people, and honestly, I try not to relive every second, but here's the gist of it. The judge laid out the situation. A later will, probably executed, existed. It named me as the primary beneficiary, and the law firm had produced it. The safe deposit box, when finally opened in the presence of bank staff, contained a copy of that same will and a handwritten letter from Grandma. The letter was brutal in the calmest way. She wrote that she didn't trust my parents to honor my wishes if they're not favorable to them, and instructed whichever court or attorney is reading this to treat the attached will as her final intentions. And she also wrote, if anyone has claimed there was only an earlier will, they are not being truthful. It was like she knew exactly what they would try. On top of that, the DA presented evidence that my parents had submitted the fake-looking will, signed sworn statements denying any later one existed, and then quickly transferred a bunch of assets to themselves and my brother. They had sold the rental duplex to a shell company my brother controlled, well below market value, then refinanced it for full value, and they had forgotten to list multiple accounts. The notary whose stamp appeared on the fake will never commissioned in our state. The DA didn't have to stretch to make it sound bad. It was bad all on its own already. My parents tried to play the confused and grieving card, and my mom even cried. My dad claimed the lawyer's will must be a draft and that Grandma changed her mind back. My brother tried to act like he was just along for the ride, but the judge was not buying it. The paper trail was too clear. The whole time I sat there, calm, I didn't testify about my feelings. I let the documents and my grandma's own words do the talking. In the end, the judge ruled that Grandma's final will was valid and had been intentionally concealed. The entire previous probate was set aside. The estate was to be administered under the later will with me as the beneficiary. Civilly, that meant the property's accounts and anything traceable came back into the estate or directly to me. The court ordered my parents and brother to account for every dollar they had taken. It was a big number, around $2 million in total value. Criminally, the DA filed charges for fraud, perjury and theft from an estate. My parents and brother lawyered up and tried to negotiate, but eventually they took plea deals rather than risk trial. They didn't get life sentences or anything dramatic like that, but they did get actual time behind bars, followed by probation and massive restitution orders. The judge made a good point of saying their conduct was a serious breach of trust and an egregious abuse of the legal system. The day sentencing was handed down, my mom tried one last time. In the hallway as we were leaving, she grabbed my arm. "How could you do this to your own family?" she hissed. "You sent your parents to prison." I pulled my arm back. "You did that when you decided to steal from me and lie to a judge." "It was our money," my brother muttered from behind her. "Grandma loved us more. You just tricked some lawyer." I looked at him. Grandma wrote everything in her own hand. She trusted me to do the right thing. You three chose crimes instead. The sheriff's deputy called them, and that was that. I watched them walk away in handcuffs, feeling not happy exactly, just done with everything. After everything wrapped up, I took some time off and went to see Grandma's house. The estate lawyer helped retitle it fully into my name, along with what was left of the rental properties and accounts after the legal fees and clawbacks. I stood in the living room where I'd spent so many afternoons with her, listening to her stories, helping her pay bills, drinking tea. It felt wrong and right at the same time. On the dining table, I laid out her final will and her letter from the safe deposit box. I read the line where she said, "I trust OP to be fair even if others are not." I cried for the first time since the whole thing started. I didn't blow the money on some wild spree. I used part of it to pay off my own modest debt and put a real down payment on a place. I fixed up Grandma's house and rented it out to a nice older couple who treated it with respect. I put a big chunk into boring, safe investments. I set aside some for therapy because, yeah, watching your family implode in court does things to your head, and I went no contact. No calls, no texts, no visits. So, Reddit, do you think I acted like an a-hole in this situation or not? And yeah, guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think OP did everything right, or was he an a-hole? I'm curious what you have to say. Comment number 1. I honestly cannot believe what I just read. You're the a-hole massive time. You admitted that you were independent and doing fine, and you still felt the need to destroy your family over money? You literally sent your own parents to prison. Prison! Over a house and some cash. They raised you, fed you, and this is how you repay them? Sure, maybe they fudged some paperwork, but families work things out privately. You didn't have to involve the DA, you chose to ruin your brother's future and put your elderly parents in a cell because you were jealous that they were the golden child. You value your grandma's legacy more than living, breathing relatives. I hope that money keeps you warm at night because you are a vindictive person. Obviously, 100% disagree with that. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, not even a little bit. Don't listen to anyone telling you otherwise. Your parents did not just make a mistake, they actually committed felonies. They forged a will, committed perjury, and tried to steal millions of dollars that your grandma specifically wanted you to have because she knew they were untrustworthy. Your mom asking how could you do this to your family? It is classic gaslighting. You did not send them to prison, their own greed and criminal actions did that. If you had not found that key, they would have happily left you with nothing while laughing all the way to the bank. Good for you for sticking to your guns and honoring your grandma's actual wishes. Enjoy the peace of no contact. Comment number 3, I'm going against the grain here to say everyone sucks here. Obviously, your parents and brother are major a-holes for the fraud and theft, that is undeniable, but you sound terrifyingly cold. You admit that you played along and let them dig their own grave for months while you secretly built a case to ensure they got jail time. You could have just walked into that first meeting with the lawyer and said, "Hey, I found the real will, stop this now." But instead, you waited until they refinanced properties just to twist a knife. You said you took the pro-revenge route, which implies you wanted them to suffer rather than just wanting your inheritance back. They are criminals, sure, but you seem pretty manipulative yourself. This whole family sounds toxic. And the next one is a fantastic story from r/petty revenge that you don't want to miss. It is titled, How About You Don't Try to Ruin Someone's Day. I don't know if this is the right subreddit because I was not the giver of the revenge, but it was a deity looking over me, but I reaped all the glory. So I saw a card on the street that reminded me of this story. It happened around 12 years ago. I, 29 male, then 16, was going home in the rain with my friends from school. As you know, teenagers are a bunch of chaotic gremlins that cause mayhem when in groups. They walk in the rain, sing loud when having fun, climb trees, etc. This particular afternoon was not raining too hard, it was falling droplets, so we didn't require an umbrella. The curbs, however, were drowning with the amount of water running down those street drains. Then it comes a car. The streets were large enough to fill with 2 cars side by side and even a third, so this car did not even need to touch the curb water, but this dude swerved out of his way to drench us. And I mean it. He wanted us to evolve back into fish with the speed he picked up, and as soon as we saw the dude accelerating, we grabbed whoever was not paying attention and pushed near the wall because we thought he was gonna hit us, not splashing some dirty water. My particular group of friends always kept to ourselves and made fun of each other, not outsiders. I think this is what God or another higher being used to apply judgment in that situation. I remember thinking about my dog waiting for me at home while I held one of my friends in front of me with my back turned to the car, and suddenly a really loud clunk noise and a little water splashed my butt. Either that or I shat myself, hard to remember. We looked back and the car was standing next to us, smoke coming from the tires, I think. Either there or somewhere else, and the lower front of the fender caved in. We were saved from this particular tsunami thanks to our city's inferior infrastructure. Water drainage was a problem in some places, so people used to put stuff in drains to prevent leaves and things from blocking the water, but this time there was a metal rod sticking out of the drain. The impact caused a rod to break in half, not before reshaping the dude's fender and cracking the pavement. When we saw that, my friends made sure to try and humiliate the man by pointing and laughing so theatrically loud that we almost forgot the fear we felt. The dude was pissed, but what was he gonna do? Beat a bunch of kids? The impact site was fixed not too long ago, but the lesson we all got was, don't be an a-hole in the rain and don't try to screw a bunch of teens minding their own business. And the next one is a petty revenge story, which is titled, My employer stole from us every shift, but I kept my mouth shut. So for context, our shifts were 10.5 hours long, but I only got paid for 10. The boss took off 30 minutes for our lunch breaks, however, we were required to work during lunch. He forced us to answer calls and wait on customers during our unpaid lunch, but to be clear, this is illegal. He must have saved over 100k on payroll in the 5 years I worked there doing this. Anyway, when I became a shift manager, I made sure we took 2-hour lunch breaks, an hour break in the morning and an hour break in the afternoon, and on slow days we would stand around doing nothing for hours at a time, all the while the job was being done, mind you. The owner never found out as he never worked alongside of us, and he would drop in on Fridays to pay the bills and occasionally call us to check in on things. In the last year alone, I would sit in the break room on my phone for hours at a time, only answering calls and talking to customers as they came in. I reckon in the last year, 15 out of 40 hours a week were spent doing absolutely nothing. Accumulatively, I must have racked up close to 2,000 hours doing absolutely nothing in a 4-year period. I always showed up on time, stayed late if needed, made sure the job was done correctly, friendly and always treated the customers with respect. Anyway, he promised me health insurance when I turned 26, but when it came time to do it, he mysteriously couldn't afford it, so I left. The next job I worked at, a hospital billing department, we had our work queue laid out on our screen every morning. I would shred through the queue in the morning and sit on my ass the rest of the shift. I carry these lessons with me wherever I go. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.